We are actually a Luxembourgish European leader in this field. You have a lot of companies in the US leading the way there for that. You know, we are the answer to that, and we are here in Luxembourg, and we should keep that.
Today, I have the pleasure to welcome in the studio Omar Qaise, who is the founder and CEO of OQ Technology. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Jerome. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
It's an honor to have you. Omar is one of the few startups, you could say, was founded in 2016, I think, who is already reaching the scale-up stage that everybody's talking about in Luxembourg. So we're talking about doubling your staff over the past 12 months, setting extremely ambitious goals for the next years. So maybe, can you present your company in a few words?
Thanks a lot. So OQ Technology is a new space company based here in Luxembourg. We are a leader in the direct-to-satellite cellular communication, especially in the field of Internet of Things and machine communication. We have a low Earth orbit satellite constellation that is providing connectivity services to industries like the energy sector, agriculture, security, maritime, and also in the mining industry.
So if I detail a bit, you have your own satellites.
Yes.
You already have them going around.
Exactly.
How many do you have already?
So we had 10 missions, 10 satellite missions.
Already there?
Yes.
I'm sure you're preparing to send some new ones.
Of course.
And basically your clients can communicate directly with the satellite.
Exactly. So this is actually the basic idea, is that the satellite industry has been always a proprietary technology industry. Each company has their own technology, their own products, and so on. And I was like, you know, the cellular industry is not like this. That's why you have the scale, because they follow a global standard, whether it's 3G, 4G, or 5G. I said, okay, why don't we do this also with satellites, especially with like nano satellites that you can build and launch easily and for a very cheap price. And this is actually what brought us into the idea to tag into the cellular industry, roam with cellular operators, and use the same technology to connect directly to cellular devices, whether it's IoT or also smartphones in the future.
So when you talk about nano satellites, how big are they?
So nano satellite, they are really small. They're like shoebox size. You know, we're talking like 30 centimeter by 20. They can go to different scales, but you're still within like the 20, 30, 40, 50 kilogram, you know, and the small dimensions. And you can build them using like off-the-shelf electronic components, so you don't need to use expensive electronic components that are existing in the traditional space industry. You can go into low Earth orbit where there's not much of radiation, and you can still provide services. And that's actually what we call the new space movement, where a lot of small startups started like building these satellites, launching them using companies like SpaceX, where the launch cost really like it came down a lot in price compared to like the 10 years ago, and it's going down even more. And that, of course, allows a lot of companies to build business based on cheap launches and small satellites.
So just to help people understand, I think there are three main orbits. You got the very low one, the middle one, and the high one. And I think the numbers, I think the high one is like 36,000 kilometers. So it takes a lot of energy to go so high. Whereas the low one, the LEO,
like here we are at 500 kilometers.
500 instead of 36,000.
Yeah, exactly. And it's cheaper to get there. And it's cheaper to build satellites. You know, like if you want to go to geo orbit, probably going to need 90, 80 million dollars to launch your satellite there. To go into low Earth orbit, probably 200,000.
Yeah, it's a big change, and we've seen SpaceX typically sending them like by batch of 25, one after the other. So it's a big revolution taking place. A lot of people watching will ask themselves, how did you land in Luxembourg?
Yeah, so I come from the German space industry background. I used to work in Germany, and then I moved to work at SES. So really, I learned a lot there about the space business, the commercial side of space. And then there was the moment, I always wanted to start a space company. I realized I'm an entrepreneur, you know, I'm not going to work in a big corporate. And by the time, of course, for every entrepreneur in space, it's like US is the direction to go.
Of course.
But I had the opportunity here actually to meet directly the decision makers in Luxembourg, and that's the nice thing. It's small country. There's always open conversation with government, and I pitched the idea, and they have a program which is still ongoing called the Luxembourg that supports space or any deep tech companies that want to start something revolutionary to get some funding and work with the European Space Agency to get through the R&D stage. And I said, okay, let's give it a shot, let's try. And since then, it keeps going and going. We're still using this program, in addition, of course, to venture capital funding, and that's how how it came.
I have to say you came at the exact right time, because 2016 is about the same time where Etienne Schneider announced his famous space mining program. So you were exactly there where you needed to be at the right time. So if we go a little bit further, you've had now 8 years of operation. Which risks and opportunities do you identify for a company like yours working out of Luxembourg or Europe?
So just to comment on the previous question, when I started, I didn't know there are other new space startups in Luxembourg. I don't know. It was exactly the right time when a lot of new space companies were starting to come to Luxembourg. But when we started, I think we are the first new space startup in Luxembourg, and homegrown. We started we didn't have like a headquarters somewhere else, or we opened a brand. No, really, we
Spire, for example, was already operating, I think, in the US, and they came to Luxembourg to build. You started here.
Here. So so since then, of course, we see that the number of space companies here is increasing a lot, and it's a good thing also having this ecosystem. Now, if we talk about the opportunities and the challenges, of course, there are a lot of opportunities for us here, because the direct-to-cell communication is a new thing in the satellite communication industry. It never happened before, and we are actually a Luxembourgish European leader in this field. You have a lot of companies in the US leading the way there for that. We are the answer to that, and we are here in Luxembourg, and we should keep that. And there's a great opportunity here to put Luxembourg on the map, especially with respect to satellite connectivity. There's been a successful story in Luxembourg of SCS for broadband communication, geo satellites. We want to be the successful story of Luxembourg for direct-to-cell communication. And I think we have really good opportunity to be an European leader in this field. Plus, of course, OQ, we are global. We have subsidiaries in Saudi Arabia, in UAE, in Greece, in Rwanda, and we're planning to expand even more in other countries. So there's great opportunity here. The market is you're looking at a 20 billion plus market for IoT. If you look at direct to cell, there are estimates of $1 trillion market. So this is really a new revolution, and we are playing an important part there. Now, about the challenges, of course, we look to this as also opportunities for us. We are a company going through the scale-up stage, from startup to scale-up. And of course, there's a lot of demand. Many customers need this service, and we need to be able to deliver. And that requires, of course, a lot of talent. It requires a lot of funding, growth stage funding. And I think a lot should be done there also to sustain companies that reach this stage. I think
maybe let's talk about this financing, because as you said, the reason why I invited you is that you're one of the typical scale-up examples. You already serve companies like Aramco or some other companies. Telefonica, very big names. So the case is already established. Now you want to scale up. Intuitively, we think, okay, Luxembourg is a financial center, that should be easy. So tell me already, right now, how did you finance your growth so far? Is it state contract, or is it subsidies, or how did it work so far?
So we started since the beginning actually with contracts. So like with government contracts for R&D to develop the IP, the technology. We have 9 granted patents in the US and in Europe. And I say granted, not just like filed in the field of narrowband IoT or over satellites. And of course, that helps us at the beginning to de-risk the technology part. But then we went into the stages of seed round, Series A, and now in Series B. And you know, we are one of the companies that really brought private funding from outside into Luxembourg. The investment
Let's
happened
stop
here in
one
Luxembourg.
second here. If we take the money you raised during those rounds, how many percent were coming from Luxembourg?
So it's so the money that we got through contracts, of course, of R&D. This is like revenue.
Yeah,
you know,
I'm
it's
talking
like
just about
non-dilutive.
raising money to scale.
Yeah, I think with the, I mean, I can't go into percentages, but we had a convertible note recently through the Luxembourg Space Development Fund, where SCS is actually is one of the members of that fund, and that is actually the, let's say, kind of private government Luxembourg funding into the company. The seed round, the Series A, were mainly like from venture capitals and angels outside Luxembourg.
Okay, because I think this is a topic that comes back all the time, which is there is a huge ecosystem of private equity and venture capital in Luxembourg. 500 meters away from here, we have Apollo, we have Carlyle, and then a few a bit further. All of them are here, basically, the top 20 in the world. But this is a back office jurisdiction. So how could we help companies like you connect with the decision centers of these VCs and private equity players?
Yeah, so on one side, I think from the government side, there are a lot of instruments and tools to help deep tech and space companies grow, and also especially at the early stage. But of course, at some point, you need to stand on your feet and start getting private funding, and this is where the VCs come into the game. And the government has been very supportive for us even until today. And we did manage to get VC funding, but then when you reach this growth stage, you know, you are at this region where, and it's a general problem in Europe. I don't think it's just, you have a lot of VCs and funds for early stage, but growth stage and scale ups it's not that much. And I think this is an area that Luxembourg should really consider, because you're going to have a lot of these companies that are going to graduate and reach also this stage, and then there should be enough funding to scale. I think that's one point. The other point is where also I think like, you know, the communication with these VCs, attracting these VCs to come to Luxembourg and invest in Luxembourg space companies, you know, not just in companies outside, but really in homegrown Luxembourg space companies. There are a lot of successful companies here in space in Luxembourg, a lot of startups doing their best to reach the stage. And you know, in order also to get the return of investment of all these contracts and RDs and subsidies to these companies, at some stage, you know, you need to have the commercial return on investment, and having this capital investment, private, whether it's VCs or private equity, has to take place here in Luxembourg. That's on one side. The other thing also, if you're really thinking about creating a champion in Luxembourg, like really a space company like SpaceX that's gonna be a monopoly in the world in this market, you know, and really get the return. I think like the strategy of investing in many companies, a few millions and so on, can, you know, it's good, it can bring unicorns over long term, but I think in space, especially, it's a very long-term investment. You need really to create a champion with a very big ticket, whether it's a government contract, whether it's an investment. I mean, look at SpaceX. SpaceX wouldn't come to where they are today. If you look early, they got really big contracts from NASA at the early stages. Like first one, I think it was close to $300 million. Then you know, many contracts, 1.6 billion. So that really, I mean, it's a long-term investment that today created a company that is, I think, valued 127 billion. It's almost a monopoly in the launches, in launcher
in the
market. And it's like, you know, this is the barrier to entry is very huge right now. And I think this is something that, you know, if we really want to have a company like that in any field, whether it's, and I think Luxembourg is well positioned towards satellite connectivity, my view in space. And you really need to have like that champion and really invest in that champion to bring them to that stage. So yeah, that's at least my view on it.
Let me connect a few dots here. So the first dot I have in mind is the Draghi report. Mario Draghi clearly advocates for what you just said. He's advocating for 800 billion euro investment every year to catch up in technology and competitiveness. So that's one dot. Then you have another dot, which is SES. You mentioned it several times. It was a fabulous success story from 1985, where the public sector and the private sector came together in the best way ever to build a champion. And 40 years after, it's evolving at the moment, but it still is one of the big champions. So I think what we need to see now is some political courage to change old habits, because in the last 20 years we haven't seen such a bold investment in a few champions, and they need to take some risk. I think this is a missing part right now. Will you succeed or not? Nobody can know, but you're one of the leaders, so they should be able to take the risk to create the big opportunity. And that takes me to the last question. Where do you see your company in 3 or 5 years?
Yeah, we want to be the European leader in the direct-to-cell communication for IoT, but also for smartphones. We have a lot of value, we have a lot of technology inside, and we want to keep growing that innovation and really become the one to go to, the shop to go to for customers for direct-to-cell, and globally. I mean, being an European company is very important. Also having our headquarters here in Luxembourg, where even we can provide the EU and other institutes with our services, is something very important for us also, and keep growing like our cutting edge technology and scaling up globally.
So let's turn this, because when I listen to you, what you want to do is put Luxembourg on the market as a leader in direct cellular to satellite.
Exactly.
So the very last question is, what do you need? Do you need money? Do you need support in terms of administrative simplification? What do you need?
I think that for a company like us on this stage, exactly, it's the funding. It's the funding required.
So funding is a priority.
Yeah,
how much do you need?
Well, it's a good question, but you know, at least if I look at what we need compared to what US companies are getting, you know, into their direct-to-cell infrastructure.
Let's say there's no limitation. What would you ideally need to go for it?
Well, if I want to put the whole infrastructure out there and provide the service, I'm talking like initially having like between 50 to 100 million.
Okay, 50 to 100 million.
You'll have the infrastructure there. You are the first one in the market. You capture the market. Of course, there depends on what you need. But I think like, you know, the type of large ticket that allows us to be ahead of everyone, capture the market is very important. And this is still very modest compared to what US companies
Let's say 50 to 100. What else do you need?
I think talent is very important, having the talent in Luxembourg, bringing the talent in Luxembourg, making it attractive. It's very hard, and I think this is known in the space industry, for deep tech and space companies to attract talent, to bring them here. We managed like to double our number of headcount. We brought a lot of talent, but we see always a lot of challenges. We lose a lot of talent, like to Netherlands, to Germany, to France. And I'm not a decision maker here, but I think we need to make that as much as possible attractive to bring talent, because without talent, you know, you can't create these great things here.
Could the solution be maybe to say, okay, you need at least 50% of your team here, and that they should allow you also to have a second office? You know, PwC just announced that they will have 250 people in Portugal. Would this be a positive development for you to solve your attractiveness issue?
I think for me, I'm an advocate of having the largest pool of talent, especially like where the IP, where the creativity happens here in Luxembourg.
Okay.
Because you know, we started like with a team of 6 people in a garage. We speak to each other and we try to keep the same mentality. And we did discover like you need to be close to the creators, to the engineers, in order to create things. You need to have conversation. You know, we have offices also in other countries for different strategic reasons, but I still believe like the main core reactor and the main pool of the talent has to be in the headquarters where we are. Okay,
so if I sum up, what you need to do, or what we need right now, and there's a space conference this week, so I think the context is perfect. It would be great that you speak with the minister, all the colleagues. I'm pretty sure some people from the Orbital Venture company will be there too. So you guys should sit and solve the one issue you are dealing with right now. How could you raise between 50 and 100 million euro as soon as possible?
Thank you very much. I appreciate this, and it's been a very interesting conversation.
Let me know if this succeeds, because that would be a very strong step forward. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. I will. Thank you.